Welcome to In the House. My name is Mark Scheiber. Glad to have you back for this edition, this episode. Very, very excited to have Representative Brian Biggs is our guest today, and he represents District 70, Randolph County. Representative Biggs, welcome to In the House.
Hey, thank you so much for having me, and we're glad to be here today. Thank you.
Yeah, well, you're in your first term, so you don't have a lot of the war stories that some of the other folks have, but you got your feet wet pretty good with a budget process that was definitely very unusual. I have been here myself about a decade, and every session has a life of its own personality. But this one was different. And how did you feel as a first termer going through this? Did you feel like it was weird or good or bad or tough or easy? Or what was going through your mind?
Yeah, well, there was a lot of emotions. And so what I did, like what you just spoke about, I spoke to a lot of members and different people that had been here, lobbyists, different ones that had been here 20 years. And I said, is this normal? And they're like, no, this is not quite. This was a little more. They said this is a little more. And but you know what happened is there was a lot of ideas on the table, a lot of thoughts, and what I've seen since I've came here, we've got people that are lawyers, doctors, homemakers, football coaches. I mean, just you name it, we've got it. And so when you get that, you get a lot of opinions and a lot of different districts and what we have to respect. And we look at while we're talking to people. And I think the level of respect was there. And at the end of the day, I think that's why we got a budget, because, you know, what Randolph County, expects out of me may not be what Manio expects out of their candidate. You know, it may not be. And I'm not sure what they expect, but it's different, and we all have to realize that we do have differences. And I really thought the process worked well, although I was told it was a little unusual there from what people had seen in the past. But I thought that cooler heads prevailed, and just thank God that we were able to give one of the best budgets for the state of North Carolina in history. And we appreciate it, each and every one of our constituents bearing with us.
You know what? I think you're right. It is a tremendous budget. It's one of the best that I have seen since I've been working in the General Assembly. But, part of the situation that we had going on, Representative Biggs, is that the media likes to just blow everything all up. Oh my gosh, they're late. Yeah. You know, it's been 2 days, it's been a week, and there have been longer budget processes, trust me. So really, y'all weren't that much overdue. It's just that the folks that like to comment, they just lose their mind and try to make it sound like this is the first time the budget's ever been late. But if I had a hat on, I'd tip my hat. Y'all did a good job, and I want to appreciate what you do.
Thank you. I think it's jump in real quick. I think it's important to get it right. Not to get it done real fast, but to get it right. And I think that's what the game plan was. We're going to get it right and make sure that we're doing what the people of North Carolina want us to do. So that's the main importance.
You know what's amazing to me, and you talk about everybody having a different background.
Yes, sir.
And you think about, okay, on one day, y'all are talking about, sports betting and casinos and all of this. The next day, you're talking about Medicaid. The next day, you're talking about water and sewer.
Oh, and
it's such a broad spectrum of topics. How do you, as a first term member of the House of Representatives, how do you keep all of that straight? It's got to be overwhelming at times, or maybe not.
I'm my background, I'm a 23-year realtor. I've been through, so I'm used to herding cats. I'm used to getting people to the closing table. And so, you just have to balance everything. And I think one thing that I already knew and I continue to do, and I've told other members, try to, even though I'm a freshman, try to advise them, you don't want to burn bridges, because today we may not agree on casinos or sports betting, but tomorrow when we're talking about the life of a baby, we may have agreements. And that's the one thing, that you don't want to burn bridges. And sometimes you have to pick your battles and kind of hold your tongue for a second. You give your thoughts, but make sure you're considering of other people's feelings. I think that's one of the big things that we've been able to do. And there again, being my first term, but some of the legislation that we've gotten through this term is unprecedented. And I think it's because we have been cognitive of other people's feelings when we're going through the process. And hey, we're going to agree to disagree, but we're going to work on other projects and keep on moving forward. So
that's a great attitude. That really is. And so let's talk a little bit about, because you brought up the fact that it's unusual for a freshman member of a legislature, House or Senate, to be able to really have an impact. It usually takes a little while, but boy, you've gotten right in there and gotten some stuff done. And I think what people will really appreciate is this medical leave or medical freedom act that is part of the bill that you had sponsored. It got passed in the budget. Tell us about that, because I know people are going to be excited to hear this.
Well, the Medical Freedom Act, so my background, realtor for 23 years, and I was on the Randolph County Board of Education, served as vice chair with Chairman Gary Cook for 8 years there. And so I went through COVID there when the school system was experiencing that, as well as the rest of the nation. But I think school systems were one of the hardest hit institutions, and we're still reeling from the educational loss of students being out of school. And what happened is when we were there, the Biden administration came down with a mandate at one time that if you had over 100 employees, they had to be fully vaccinated, or they were going to basically, no longer be employed. Now they backed off of that, but we saw many of those things. And I had a son that was at the time in college. He was told, he was a college athlete playing football. You have to get fully vaccinated or you no longer can be at school unless you have a religious or medical exemption. And the religious exemptions work for some and some they did not. They say they have to honor them all. We actually used one that had been drafted by an attorney that had worked with other folks with the religious exemption, and it did not work at the college. We did finally get a doctor that, and I won't give their name because I don't want to get them in trouble, but we went to them and we said, hey, we're a medical doctor. And we said, we're at this situation now in a crossroads with my son where, they want him to get the vaccine. And we're not anti-vaccine. We just felt like this was rushed, was not vetted properly. And now we're seeing some of the problems like myocarditis in young folks and different things. And once we started seeing, as in school children, and I'll jump on this real quick, that it was not affecting them the same way. They were having like a 99% survival rate, and then we're going to vaccinate someone or give them a shot for something that it's like 99.9%. It's not going to affect them. Mm-hmm. And I said, we need to pump the brakes here and figure this out. And obviously it's an individual decision for each person. But my son was going through it, and finally, like I said, was at the doctor, and he said he had some medical issues with an injury in football. And the doctor said, oh, absolutely not, because it can cause this and this and this based on his injury that he had a knee operation. I think that's the big thing with the COVID vaccine is it's not we're treating it like an ice cream truck showing up to the park and everybody gets an ice cream cone. Yeah. And they were not taking in consideration other people's health factors and things that were going on in their lives, and it's been forced on them. So what we did, I'll try to be quick, with the Medical Freedom Act, our goal is to make the mandate of the COVID-19 vaccine not legal. You cannot mandate it for employment, and you cannot mandate it for school children. You cannot mandate it for college children. You cannot mandate it for state or county employees. And we really wanted to get that because we had many folks that are still fighting that. I had a gentleman the other day, his wife's a nurse, and he said she still gets basically bullied to an extent because she did not take the COVID-19 vaccine. And she was just so much waiting, anticipating. She had a religious exemption for this piece of legislation to come through. So we passed through the House, we got it through. And sometimes those hot button issues, which that's one of them, it was kind of contentious, but there again, we respect other people's opinions. We respectfully disagree. We got it through the House, and once we got it through the House, they put it in the budget, and the Medical Freedom Act is in the budget, and it will become law. Proud of it, proud that we can stand for the voiceless. And that's kind of, I don't want to get off on a tangent, but my background was with the school board, and those parents in 2020, 2021, they felt like they didn't have a voice, and that's where the uprising and the outcry started. And they didn't feel like they had anybody to talk to them, talk for them. And that's a part of this Medical Freedom Act. I actually started it as soon as I got here, started working on this. And I said, you know, I want to be a voice for the voiceless. I want to be a voice for, obviously, for my district, District 70, and the people of District 70, we love them. But even the whole state of North Carolina, because parents kind of felt helpless, and workers, and they've been forced into a situation that they were not wanting to participate in. So I'm excited about the Medical Freedom Act, and like I said, it doesn't say that you can't get the COVID-19 vaccine if you want to, or shot, but it's not required, and that's the main thing we want to do. It's not required.
Well, we ought to be, you know, shouting this from the rooftops. That's huge, based on what people went through. I know that everybody remembers that there's a great amount of emotion attached to that, feeling like the government was just stepping all over people's freedom and their right to choose.
Absolutely.
And so, wow, I mean, that's awesome. Good job.
Yeah. Hey, we're excited about it. Glad to be a part of it. Like I said, I want to be a voice for the voiceless, because a lot of times constituents, they feel like they email, they call, and nobody's listening. And one thing they're going to know, that Brian Biggs, Representative Biggs, will be listening. And I tell my guy every day, when people call, our main concern is our constituents. You make sure we're answering that call, answering those emails, and that's our job. And that's what we want to do. And it's very fulfilling to make sure that you can do that. And yeah, that's very proud of that. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Absolutely. And you know what? I meant to tell you this. When I first started working here, I worked with Senator Jerry Tillman, and he represented Randolph County for many years.
Oh, yeah.
And those folks down there are used to their legislator being responsive to their needs. I remember he'd call me he'd be at a gas station drinking a soda, and he'd call me and say, "Hey, so-and-so worried about this or that. You need to get on it." So I know that you're following in that fine tradition of constituent service. There's some fine people down there in Randolph County. And one of the things that you've also been significantly a part of, again, you're getting a lot done for a freshman, so proud of you. The zoo there in Asheboro is a tremendous economic driver for our state.
Yes, sir.
People go to the zoo. They love going to the zoo, and they're in Asheboro. And one of the things that is important when you guys do a budget is, are you going to be able to meet some of the needs in your district that sometimes, well, I remember for a while, they just couldn't, because the previous party had left our state in a financial mess, but we won't go into that. But there's an opportunity through good budgeting and tax cuts that have been put in place that have actually generated more revenue than you guys had thought. And so you have some money to be able to help the districts. And one of the things that you were able to do is, with other parts of the delegation there in Randolph County, is get some money for the zoo and the aviary, which is big doings. Tell us about that.
Well, and that's a joint effort. It's the Randolph County delegation, me, myself, Senator Galey, Senator Dave Craven, and Representative Neil Jackson. When we were looking for budget items, and obviously we all represent similar, sometimes we overlap and sometimes we don't. So we have to take care of different parts of the county, and others have different counties. But we all went together and we said, hey, what's the big things that need to be done here in Randolph County? And the aviary there at the zoo is something that's near and dear to everyone's heart. It was in disrepair. They were shutting it down. because of just actually just poor construction, I think. And sometimes that the construction just didn't hold up over time. And like you said, the economic driver, the zoo, is the second most visited attraction in North Carolina behind the Biltmore. And we're working every day to be the first. We want to be number one. So, we're adding Asia and Australia there to it. That's in the works right now. We're looking at we're hearing rumors of conference centers and things like that, and hotels coming near the zoo. And we want to make the zoo a 2-day adventure, 2 or 3 day, because actually, I mean, it's very easily done. It's huge and it's continuing to grow. And we're just excited what they're doing at the zoo. I'm excited to be a part of it. As far as me helping procure some money, being part of the delegation, I'm just glad to be on the team because it's so great. My family, we love it. We're members of the zoo. We go often. Just glad to be a part of the situation. And the annexing part of the zoo, we put a bill to have the North Carolina Zoo. It's going to be annexed into the city limits of Asheboro, which is going to save our North Carolina Zoo to the tune of about $300,000 in water sewer rates. Wow. Because right now they're paying out of town rates, and so it's going to save them money. Asheboro, it's one of my cities, and they love to promote the zoo. They put out advertisement. They're helping North Carolina, and they just want to make sure they put their name on it and promote it and get everyone here that we can in the world. It's one of the largest zoos in the world, and we're proud of it.
Well, good job. That's awesome. Good to hear things moving forward. And like you said, people like the aviary, so we definitely didn't want to see that go away. Excuse me. Now, as we come to the end of our time, boy, it really flies, but you were involved with Senate Bill 20, the Care for Women, Children, and Families Act. And tell us how you were involved. I know it was a Senate bill, but how were you able to be that's another piece of important legislation.
Well, it's there again. It's very much there, and that is, that's one of those things where there's a lot of emotions on every side. A lot of emotions.
Yes, sir.
Personally, I believe life begins at conception. And so when we're going through it, going through the bill, and we're looking at conception versus 6 weeks, which was a heartbeat bill, which many, I think Florida did, Texas and different ones. And then, that had the 12 weeks that we're looking at. And that was a tough piece of legislation because you have many different sides, and you hear people all the time that are saying, well, such and such is they're lying. They're not standing on their platform, but their opinion of the situation where it needed to be at did not line up with mine all the time. And it's not really, they're not lying. It's what their opinion is, and it's what they've always had. And so that was tough, but I am proud of the fact, I'll be honest, I reluctantly signed on to the 12 weeks, but you know what? We're saving babies' lives. We're moving the needle further than it's been moved in a long time.
Yes,
and we felt like it was, it came down to this. It was going to be 20 weeks or 12 weeks. And so if we can take out, that 8 weeks and save some more lives of children, we had to sign on to it because people said, well, you need to do, the conception or 6 weeks. That was not an option because the bottom line is you got to have 72, to pass a piece of legislation like that.
Right.
And we did not have the votes to do that. But I'm proud. Like I said, I'm proud of it. Probably a little more in hindsight. I am glad we moved the ball forward down the field. That was a tough one. There's a lot of emotions there. But I do believe life begins at conception. I do believe we need to respect every life, whether born or unborn. And when we stop respecting life, we're going down a slippery slope. And we start deciding when they can feel pain or when they can't feel pain. And some people would like to have abortions, the day of or, on the operating table. I've heard different ones that was in Virginia there, and they want to give people decisions whether or not they're going to abort the baby after it's born, the Born Alive Act. And some of this stuff, it sounds like Alice in Wonderland, but it's true how some people feel. But I am proud that we are doing more to protect babies, and I hope we do more in the future.
Absolutely. And again, I appreciate you working hard in that area because, well, I don't need to get off on a thing here, but I agree with you. We need to protect those unborn babies because they are children. And so thank you for the work that you have been doing in that area. I was going to get you to talk about some of the other appropriations that you've been able to get for Randolph County. We're kind of up against our time here, but give me a couple of infrastructure things that you were able to get included in the budget to help your district.
Well, just a few things. I'll be real quick. Obviously, Randolph County is growing. We're booming. We're a growing county. My district is just blowing up there in new businesses and housing. Like I said, the delegation, I want to say we, Senator Craven Gailey, me and Neil Jackson, we procured $85 million for wastewater infrastructure projects. We do have Randolph County. We have the Toyota battery plant that we've had brought in,
right?
And that is awesome. I'm glad that's an economic driver like no other in the state of North Carolina. But we want to make sure we get the infrastructure there because I don't want Toyota to boom and the community not boom. Right. We want that water and sewer there where that community can see the fruits of their labor. They can have housing and stores and see economic development. And that was a big thing in my mind when we were doing it. Hey, Toyota's great. Obviously, let's make sure the citizens feel some of this greatness too, because they didn't have the infrastructure, to keep up with it. And obviously, most everything I did was infrastructure projects. The bigger things were Trinity. We did $4.5 million for Trinity. Archdale was $7 million. Randall was $5.1 million. Asheboro, we got $4.1 million for Asheboro. Water and sewer. We're just trying to get our infrastructure ready for the projects that are coming to Randolph County. We're just excited. I mean, our county's growing, our population's growing. Just like I said, there again, I'm glad to be a part of it. It's not me, it's our delegation, and I'm just one member, and I'm glad to be a part of it and, push the ball down the field.
Yeah. Well, you're doing a great job, and you did a great job here in the house, and I'll have you back on as we can do that in the future because I enjoy talking to you. There's a lot more that I'd like to talk to you. One of the questions that I'm sure we don't have time to get into now, but I asked you earlier, you got all these different topics and different areas that you have to think about, and then all of a sudden closer to home you got this gigantic economic development thing happening. Boy, what a time to be a representative of the good folks in Randolph. Representative Biggs, you're doing a great job. Thank you for your time. Thank you for being our guest today on In the House.
Hey, thank you for having me, and God bless you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.